This is Chicago. At the dawn of the 21st century, Chicago's media was dominated by a handful of major corporations. But a resistance movement arose to free Chicago's media from their clutches. One player in this movement is the Chicago Independent Media Center and its TV show, Chicago Independent Television. The Independent Media Center is a worldwide network of grassroots correspondents committed to using the tools of the media for promoting social and economic justice. You are watching this month's dispatch from the Chicago Independent Media Center.
Welcome to Chicago Independent Television, a collection of progressive video reports by grassroots media workers produced free from corporate or commercial support or influence. I'm your host, Veronica Castro. In this episode, we'll join up with the recent Occupy Spring protest organized by Occupy Chicago activists. We'll also learn more about two international summits, the NATO summit slated for Chicago, and the G8 summit, which was originally to be held in Chicago and then moved to Camp David. And we'll see a music video providing a critical view of the recent Joseph Kony viral video phenomenon. Stay with us.
Chicago Independent Television is not brought to you by Coca-Cola, whose logo is stained red by the blood of murdered Colombian labor union organizers. Learn more at killercoke.org. Coke, the drink of the death squads.
Mr. Bishop, I want to use this picture on the front page of our next issue.
Oh, come now, Nancy. We can't print a picture like that. Paper is read by people all over the city. Just think what a picture like that would do to the reputation of our newspaper.
I don't think we should hide things just because they're unpleasant. How do we stop things like this if we don't let the people know they're happening?
Welcome back to Chicago Independent Television. Easter weekend in Chicago saw a resurgence of activity from Occupy Chicago in what activists are calling Occupy Spring. We'll learn more in this next segment.
Hi, my name is Lynette. I'm with Occupy Northwest Side, and this is a give-receive peace circle. Basically what it is a lot of people have donated stuff, and people come to take stuff. So it's a give-receive type of environment. So we're trying to break down walls between people and money between people and bring people together and start taking care of each other, because the system isn't taking care of us, because clinics are shutting, things keep cutting. And the people need to start being there for the people. This is in Logan Square at the Eagle. We're occupying the Eagle today. Occupy Northwest Side is in solidarity with Occupy Chicago.
It's a big leech, I guess, right?
Very awesome.
Trial manual here is a blood-sucking leech.
Apparently.
Got some Abraham Manual's crap. Who wants some Abraham Manual?
Oh my God.
And it's got
wonderful and fragrant.
fecal matter.
And delicious.
The other day,
There's poop with a ribbon around it.
goddamn right, he's a couple days.
Yeah.
Occupation is not legal!
if nothing out of the ordinary were occurring.
Undocumented, if you're an ex-felon in this country, you're undocumented. If you're homeless in this country, you're undocumented. If you're unemployed in this country, we are all undocumented when it comes to this government.
This, what we see right here, has become America's solution to the housing crisis. Putting people in debt. What do we think about that? Are we going to stand for that? Are we going to allow them to spend $50,000 to provide low, cheap labor for corporate America, or are we going to tell them that they have to give us our human right to housing? Which one? All right, so we want all of you to join us. We're going to march from here down to the park and join the rest of our brothers and sisters who are calling for an end to what the 1% are trying to do to us. Power to the people! Power to the people! We want our street! 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 Shut it down! Shut it down! Hold this system! Shut it down! Wall Street! Shut it down! Shut it down! Wall Street! Shut it down! Shut it down! Michigan! We will be having a freedom feast! We will be having a freedom feast! We hope that all of you join us! We hope that all of you join us! Have a wonderful day! Have a wonderful day!
Chicago Independent Television is not brought to you by Blackwater, a worldwide leader in security and murder. Learn more at blackwaterbook.com. Blackwater, we kill innocent Iraqis so that you can feel more secure.
Burger, fries.
Value gun. There's never been a better time to buy.
Nope, no tea.
I'm more equal than you.
Welcome back to Chicago Independent Television. Why is there so much protest activity surrounding the 2012 NATO summit? We'll hear now from one activist who offers his take on the issue.
Well, NATO is the world's largest military alliance in history. It is arguably responsible for tens of thousands of deaths. And I would boil down to about 5 reasons why people should oppose NATO. NATO is an alliance that, frankly, beats up on small nations over and over again. We have troops in over 130 countries around the world. Most of the people in the world don't want those troops in their countries. We have a situation where NATO gives the international fig leaf basically to U.S. foreign policy, and that foreign policy is I think, utterly destructive to people in other countries. I mean, Afghanistan, for example, they suffer 450 displacements a day. Afghanistan, 250 kids die of malnutrition each day, and yet we're shoveling $2 billion a week into Afghanistan, which clearly isn't helping the Afghan people. NATO is, again, the fig leaf of international legitimacy for the fact the United States supports all these tin pot dictators around the world. We've got a situation where, of course, the United States complains about the human rights situation in Iran, which is utterly deplorable, but all these complaints, the United States, of course, points to Iran, but shovels billions of dollars in arms to Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabian dictatorship. You could point to NATO military spending. I mean, NATO is responsible for 70% of world military spending. The United States is responsible for 50% of world military spending. You contrast that to the urgent needs for funds in this city. We've got a $700 million Board of Education deficit looming. We've got over, I believe, 100,000 homes in foreclosure in this city. We have got a situation where student debt has now surpassed credit card debt, and unlike credit card debt, cannot be discharged through bankruptcy. We've got a situation where our mass transit just a couple of years ago got cut back by more than 10% in this city. You go on and on down the list. There are any number of things that the money could be used for, but instead we're shoveling it to NATO, we're shoveling it to this big military alliance, so-called, which really is a tool for the United States to beat up on third world nations. We have frequently drawn the links to NATO and G8, and I think rightfully so. I mean, the other side did it for us by bringing initially both summits here to this town before axing the G8. NATO is basically the military arm, the de facto military arm of the G8. I mean, when they impose sanctions and those don't work sufficiently good for their purposes, then NATO countries drop bombs. So I could go on and on as to why people need to oppose NATO's policies, but I think it's also important to point out the strategic reasons why we need to oppose NATO. We have got a unique historical opportunity here in Chicago this May to push back against the 1%. The 99% has been taking down the chin for year and years. We've had, of course, the bank bailouts, but this has been a bipartisan policy in terms of against the 99%. But we have an opportunity now to push back because the eyes of the world are going to be on Chicago. President Obama is in the midst of a re-election campaign, and he aims to use the NATO and G8 summits to look presidential before the cameras. By contrast, if we have large and angry demonstrations against the president's pro-war policies, then we can begin to push back on that. I mean, that was the role of Chicago '68. People basically scuttled the career of then Hubert Humphrey, who was the presidential candidate for the Democrats in that year. And our movement at that time moved from the voting booth out into the streets and became much more powerful as a result. And that's my hope for Chicago 2012, is as we move our movement out of the voting booth, which has been an utter disaster for the last 3.5 years, and into the streets. And in that respect, replicate what happened in Chicago '68, because I think an honest look at history will point to Chicago '68 as the true beginning of the end of the Vietnam War. It's when our movement gave up on the politicians of both parties, moved into the streets, and with the anti-war movement within the U.S. military and the efforts of the Vietnamese, finally put an end to that war. And here we have America's longest ever war in Afghanistan going on now, and last year with the greatest number of deaths of Afghans in that war in the entire 10-plus year history. So it's long past time that we put an end to that war too.
Does Verizon hate freedom? Let's find out.
Well, Verizon censored cell phone text messages sent by national pro-choice political activist groups. So yes.
There you have it. Clear evidence that Verizon hates freedom. Help protect internet freedom. Visit these websites to learn more and get involved. Verizon, we never stop censoring for us.
Welcome back to Chicago Independent Television. The G8 was slated to hold its 2012 summit in Chicago, but then that summit suddenly moved away. We'll learn more about the history of the G8 in Chicago in this next segment.
The G8 is the group of 8 of the world's largest economies: France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, the United States, Russia, and Canada. Every year since 1975, the heads of state of the G8 nations gather at an annual summit whose location rotates among the G8 member nations. The G8 gather ostensibly to discuss and search for solutions on the pressing social issues of the day, such as climate change, world poverty, the AIDS crisis, third world debt, and war. But since the G8's solutions are discussed in such relative isolation from the public, and are premised on how to maintain the status quo of privilege for the richest nations in the world, the G8 has come under increasing criticism and even protest. The dam of protest burst in the late 90s, when thousands of protesters gathered in Birmingham, England in 1998, and in Cologne, Germany in 1999, in the sort of large-scale protest that presaged the multi-coalition international-scale protests like those against the World Trade Organization in Seattle in late 1999. The G8 in 2001 met in Genoa, Italy, and in the course of the public protests there, the Italian military police killed one protester, Carlo Giuliani, whose martyrdom at the G8 amplified rallying cries against the G8. Since those pre-9/11 days of protesting summits, the G8 have responded not by addressing public grievances, but by running away, often holding summits in increasingly hard-to-reach locales. Hard to reach, that is, for grassroots political activists. But activists still try, and nevertheless gather in large numbers in nearby locales. In 1997, after the G8 summit in Denver, Colorado, rumors circulated that the G8 summit was slated to come to Chicago. William Daley, then Secretary of Commerce for then-President Clinton, and brother of then-Chicago Mayor Richard M. Daley, was supposedly leading the lobbying charge. But something happened between the 1997 Denver summit and the 2004 summit: the war in Iraq, and specific to Chicago, the occupation of the Lakeshore Drive Highway by tens of thousands of anti-war activists. That Lakeshore Drive protest only lasted one evening, but got prime-time international television attention. The G8 usually announce the location of their next summit shortly after a given G8 summit ends, but in 2003, at the conclusion of the G8 summit in Evian, France, the G8 waited a month and a half before announcing that Sea Island, Georgia, an exclusive resort on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, would host the 2004 G8. As the Wall Street Journal reported, quote, Georgia said Sea Island has been chosen to host the G8 summit in line with recent venues from which protesters can be kept easily, unquote. The G8 would return to the United States in 2012, and on June 22, 2011, the Obama White House confirmed what was long rumored, that Chicago would serve as the host of the 2012 G8 summit, to be held in May 2012. Were they thinking that with the war in Iraq ostensibly over, the large anti-war protests like those on Lakeshore Drive were no longer a factor, or that the days of the big G8 protests before 9/11 were a thing of the past? Whatever they were thinking, if indeed they were thinking, they committed to coming to a major city, not figuring the emergence and growth of arguably the most widespread, impactful protest movement the United States had seen in perhaps 80 years. Occupy Wall Street. And while it may have been the Lakeshore Drive protest that may have played a role in chasing away the 2004 G8 summit, the Chicago corporate media were amplifying echoes of another protest in Chicago history, that of the 1968 Democratic National Convention, and playing up the possibility that the G8 in 2012 could be another DNC in 1968. In their coverage of the build-up to the G8, the Chicago corporate media followed the progress of Chicago activists organizing and speaking out against the G8, providing a rare, widespread forum for grassroots voices. And then, in an abrupt move, the G8 announced on March 5, 2012, that the G8 summit would be moved away from Chicago to be held instead in the exclusive presidential retreat of Camp David, Maryland. The White House stated that the G8 sought a, quote, more casual backdrop, unquote, to help focus on serious issues, presumably away from what could be a tumultuous scene nearby. And with a presidential election looming in 2012, Barack Obama wouldn't want to be another Lyndon Johnson, a one-term president blotted by a major protest. Whatever the actual reasons, Chicago activists quickly claimed victory for pressuring the move, and vowed to continue organizing and speaking out against NATO, which would still meet in Chicago in May 2012. Confirmation of this may never come, but the reactions of the G8 to consistent and successful public protest strongly implies the power that grassroots organizing has. It can even force the move of the most powerful heads of state in the world's biggest economies to scramble not once, but twice.
Hey, yo, people, this is outrageous from Roger. We got a question for G8. Why do they want to suffer, man? Let's go listen to the question, man. Okay. G8, we got a question for you. G8, we got a question for you. Why do you want us to suffer? Why do you want us to perish?
Does Comcast hate God? Let's find out.
Well, Comcast blocked internet traffic, which allowed internet users to upload and download online copies of the Bible. So yes.
There you have it. Clear evidence that Comcast hates God. Help protect God. Visit these websites to learn more and get involved. Comcast, it's blocktastic.
Welcome back to Chicago Independent Television. Here's a music video from our friends at The Rap News, providing a rare, critical look at the recent Joseph Kony viral video phenomenon.
Welcome, dear viewers, to the show. It's only the start of 2012, but already coast to coast we hear reports that humanity has evolved globally. Now that we know the cause of all our woes, Joseph Kony. The world's now on a better path, and the panacea seems to have come from this hero white man here, whose internet video played a vital role in highlighting the plight of Uganda's child soldiers. It went viral and spread with unprecedented speed, shared over Twitter feeds and endorsed by celebrities. To tell us more, we're happy to have him on. It's General Baxter, representing AFRICOM. General Baxter, good to see you.
Right back at ya.
Tell us, what does all this signify for Africa?
Well, Robert, I can tell you for a start, Kony 2012 really made me appreciate art. When my son showed me this clip, my heart was stirred. I was spurred to action to right the wrong that occurred.
Tell us your feelings, General. Be honest.
Since we killed Osama, there's been a hole in my stomach.
Sorry to hear that.
I miss him.
Why?
Because we desperately need a new dark-skinned Disney villain so we can justify defense budgets of trillions in a never-ending quest to kill him. And this time it's African soil where we need to get him broiled and quick before China gets all the oil.
So this Kony is a perfect gift then.
He looks like a bad guy and he hurts children.
Kony 2012 was an experiment. Was it a success?
Yes, kids are begging the US to bomb Africa next. Check this out. Let me introduce you to Gavin, my son.
Gavin, what does Daddy do?
Kill poor people with guns.
Yeah, now look what happens when I show Gavin a picture of an African. Who's this?
That's a bad guy.
That's right. And what do we do to bad guys?
We use drones and armed forces to kill them and take their resources.
Yeah, see, Robert? Even a 4-year-old has got it. This makes me so proud. I'm sorry.
The video's done more than you ever envisaged, and in 27 minutes, without cats or titties.
We used to have to wait for terrorist attacks to justify interventions and mineral grabs. Now, thanks to viral videos, we can send advisors to arrest bad guys.
And what will you do once they've been caught?
Hand them over to the International Criminal Court.
You mean the same court which the US refuses to submit to for its own war crimes and abuses? Is that hypocrisy?
Robert, honestly, the ICC only prosecutes dark people's atrocities.
Okay, I hear there's been criticism of the video's accuracy, fallacies, and neo-colonial fantasies.
Don't have such a heart of darkness, Robert. Join the missionary industrial complex. Save poor Africa from burning. Accept the white man's burden. Plus, 90 million Americans now know that Africa exists. That's good, no?
I suppose so. Alright, General Baxter, thanks for appearing tonight to explain the facts in black and, well, mostly white. Some might disagree with this call to make Kony famous, but what we've witnessed this week is nevertheless momentous. A demonstration of this internet's potential abilities to instantly inform and engage tens of millions, and a willingness of those millions of people to engage passionately with something more meaningful. Combined, these are promising signs of the potential energy that lies dormant and primed, ready to rise when the moment arrives. What that moment will be, we shall see in time.
You've been watching Chicago Independent Television, a project of the Chicago Independent Media Center Video Collective. The Independent Media Center is a growing worldwide network of media producers, journalists, citizens, and activists, working to put the media in the hands of everyday people and away from corporate and commercial interests. To learn more, visit our website at chicago.indiemedia.org. There you can find out about upcoming Chicago area events and how to get involved in making your own media, including how to help make this very TV show. Thanks for watching. See you next time.